The Chumash tribe was one of the most advanced indigenous groups in California, residing along the southern coast in areas such as Santa Barbara, Ventura, and San Luis Obispo. They were highly skilled in boat making, crafting two mauls which were plank-built canoes that allowed them to navigate the Pacific Ocean efficiently. This ability helped them establish a vast trade network, exchanging goods like shell beads, fish, and obsidian with neighboring tribes. The Chumash were also known for their rock art, which featured intricate symbols and vibrant colors, often found in caves and sacred sites. Their society was well organized, with leaders known as Wats, who guided their communities. The Chumash lived in large, dome-shaped houses made from tule reeds and engaged in fishing, hunting, and gathering acorns. Despite Spanish colonization, Chumash culture and traditions continue to survive through their descendants today. The Tongva tribe, also known as the Gabriel, were the original inhabitants of the Los Angeles Basin and the Channel Islands. They had a rich and complex culture, deeply connected to the land and sea. The Tongva lived in circular thatched houses called kit, which provided shelter from the elements. They were skilled hunters, gatherers, and fishermen relying on acorns, small game, and marine resources for sustenance. Their society had a strong spiritual tradition, with sacred ceremonies and myths that explained the natural world. The Tongva also developed an efficient trade system, exchanging goods like shell beads and soapstone with neighboring tribes. With the arrival of Spanish missionaries in the late 18th century, many Tongva people were forced into missions, leading to a decline in their population. However, modern Tongva descendants continue to work toward preserving their language, culture, and traditions. The Ohlone tribe, also known as the Costanoan people, originally inhabited the San Francisco Bay Area. In Central California, they lived in small, independent villages, rather than a centralized political system, and adapted well to the diverse landscapes of coastal, valley, and woodland environments. The Ohlone were skilled hunters, gatherers, and fishermen relying on acorns, deerfish, and shellfish as their main food sources. They also practiced controlled burning to manage the land and encourage plant growth. Ohlone society was deeply spiritual, with rituals, dances, and songs playing an essential role in their daily lives. However, their way of life changed dramatically with the arrival of Spanish colonizers in the late 18th century. Many Ohlone people were forced into Catholic missions, where they suffered disease, forced labor, and cultural suppression. Despite these hardships present day, Ohlone descendants continue efforts to revive their language, traditions, and identity. The Miwok tribe was one of the prominent indigenous groups in Central California, inhabiting regions from the Central Valley to the Sierra Nevada foothills. They were divided into three main groups: Plains Miwok, Sierra Miwok, and Coastal Miwok, each adapting to their respective environments. The Miwok were skilled hunters and gatherers, relying on deer, rabbits, fish, and acorns as their primary food sources. They used woven baskets for food storage and developed effective hunting techniques, including bow and arrow hunting. Miwok villages consisted of conical houses made from tule reeds, providing shelter from varying climates. Their culture was rich in oral traditions, folklore, and ceremonies, often involving dances and music to honor nature and spirits. Spanish colonization in the gold rush significantly impacted the Miwok people, leading to land displacement and cultural suppression. Today, Miwok descendants continue efforts to preserve their heritage, language, and customs. The Yokuts tribe was one of the largest indigenous groups in California, primarily inhabiting the Central Valley. They lived in permanent villages along rivers and lakes, where they built dome-shaped homes made from tule reeds. As skilled hunters, gatherers, and fishermen, the Yokuts relied on deer, rabbits, fish, and acorns for sustenance. They also used woven baskets for gathering and storing food. The Yokuts had a well-defined social and political structure, with village leaders overseeing important decisions. Their culture included elaborate ceremonies, songs, and dances, many of which honored nature and spiritual beliefs. Before European contact, they were one of the most populous tribes in California, but their numbers declined due to disease, forced labor, and land loss during Spanish and American colonization. Despite these challenges, modern Yokuts descendants continue to revitalize their language, traditions, and cultural practices. The Kavia tribe, traditionally inhabited the Colorado Desert and inland empire regions of Southern California, including areas near Riverside and Palm Springs. Living in an arid desert environment, they developed innovative methods for water collection and agriculture, cultivating crops like corn, beans, and squash while also gathering acorns, mesquite, beans, and cactus fruit. The Caviar were highly skilled in basket weaving, creating intricate designs used for storage, cooking, and ceremonies. Their society was organized into clans, each led by a net chief, who oversaw important tribal matters. The Caviar had a rich spiritual tradition, with ceremonies that honored nature and ancestral spirit, despite Spanish and American colonization, which led to land loss and cultural suppression. The Kahu people have preserved many aspects of their heritage. Today they continue to revitalize their language, traditions, and crafts, ensuring their cultural survival for future generations. The Yurok tribe is one of the largest indigenous groups in California. Traditionally inhabiting the northern coastal region, along the Klamath River, they relied heavily on fishing, particularly salmon, which was a staple of their diet, and played a vital role in their economy and ceremonies. In addition to fishing, they also hunted seals and gathered acorns to sustain their communities. The Yurok were known for their canoe-making skills, crafting large redwood canoes that allowed them to navigate rivers efficiently. Their society was structured around village-based leadership, and wealth was often measured by shell currency, which was used for trade. The Yurok held deep spiritual beliefs, conducting ceremonies to maintain balance in the world. Colonization and the gold rush brought significant challenges, including land displacement and cultural suppression. But today, Yurok descendants continue to revitalize their language, traditions, and environmental practices. The Carrick tribe is one of the indigenous groups of Northern California. Traditionally living along the Klamath River, they were skilled hunters, fishers, and gatherers, relying on salmon, deer, acorns, and berries for sustenance. The Carrick are well known for their expert craftsmanship, especially in canoe making and basket weaving, which played an essential role in their daily lives. Their society was deeply spiritual, with ceremonies and rituals dedicated to maintaining balance in nature. One of their most significant traditions is the jump dance, a sacred ceremony that promotes world renewal and harmony. Unlike many other tribes, the Carrick did not have a centralized political system, but instead lived in independent villages led by respected elders. Although colonization disrupted their traditional way of life, modern Carrick descendants continue to revive their language, preserve cultural practices, and advocate for environmental protection. The Pomo tribe traditionally inhabited Northern California, in areas such as Sonoma and Mendocino counties. They were known for their exceptional basket weaving, creating intricately designed baskets that were both functional and artistic. The Pomo people lived in small villages, relying on hunting, fishing, and gathering for their survival. They hunted deer and rabbits, fished in rivers and along the coast, and collected acorns, berries, and roots as staple foods. Spirituality played a significant role in Pomo culture, with myths and ceremonies that honored nature and ancestral spirits. Their society was organized into clans, each with its own leaders and traditions. The arrival of Spanish and later American settlers led to land loss, forced labor, and cultural disruption. Despite these challenges, modern Pomo descendants continue to preserve their language, revitalize their traditions, and maintain their rich artistic heritage, especially in basket weaving. The Pomo tribe traditionally lived in Northern California, particularly in Sonoma, Mendocino, and Lake counties. They were renowned for their expert basket weaving, creating highly detailed and artistic baskets using willow reeds and feathers. These baskets were not only functional, but also considered sacred objects in ceremonies and trade. The Pomo people lived in small, independent villages, each with its own leaders and customs. They relied on hunting, fishing, and gathering, sustaining themselves with deer, rabbits, acorns, fish, and shellfish. Spiritual beliefs were deeply rooted in their culture, with myths and legends explaining the natural world and guiding their way of life. The arrival of Spanish and American settlers led to forced displacement, disease, and cultural disruption. But despite these hardships, modern Pomo descendants continue to revive their language, preserve their traditions, and maintain their legacy of intricate basket weaving.